Hello and welcome back to the Holland Homestead. It's mid-February and what we're going to be doing is starting some seeds. I know it might seem like it's a little bit early, but we're not starting out all of our seeds. We've got a few specific things that we need to start that are going to take a little bit longer to grow, but we've got a new growing setup and I'm eager to use it. So first, what we're going to be starting in this video is onions and leeks, so alliums. So we've got our seed starting compost mix made up. It is in these 3x3 round pots inside these 10-20 trays, and they are ready to receive our seeds. Last year what I did is I just took these 10-20 trays and filled them with mix to start the seeds in, and that did work. I put my different onions and leeks in the seeds in the trays and sowed them, kind of split them in half, did half on each side, and had good results. We got nice onions and leeks that are still feeding us. Leeks are were processed and put in the freezer, and the onions are stored and are downstairs in the basement. And they're still doing really well. We're still using them. But one problem I came across is that as I was selecting out which onions or leeks I wanted to use, I ended up with a lot of waste. And that's because I had to basically pull all of them out of the tray to determine what I wanted from each of those plants. And I don't need to do that. I was really disappointed I couldn't, find new homes for some of those little seedlings. And instead, I just composted them. So this year, when I go through each pot, trying to find the best seedlings out of it, if I only use half of my pots, then I won't have a whole bunch of extras that I can't do anything with. I can, be more conservative. If I have 8 pots of each of these onions, and I only use 4 of them, then I've got 8 pots or 4 pots that can find homes for someone else to grow them. So that's one reason I switched to the pots instead of the 10-20 trays. And also the 10-20 trays I couldn't bottom water. And onion seedlings, when they're just starting out, are kind of flimsy. So if you weren't really careful bottom watering them, you'd knock them over, and they would possibly die. So a couple advantages to going with this method. They're all filled up and ready to plant. Now onions are really easy, from my experience, to grow from seeds. Now we did it last year. We had good success, as long as you plan out at the right time and know what your expectations are. Now I have started from seedlings and sets. 2 years ago, when we first moved here, I started out with onion seedlings that I had purchased, and they gave us okay onions. They were probably, the biggest ones were probably about the size of tennis balls, and so yay, they're not huge. But what we had done prior to that, when we lived a little bit more in central Illinois, we had always started with sets, because that's what I had done in the past and what I knew. But I was never happy with what the sets did. Sets are onions that were grown for part of a year from seed. Then they were forced into dormancy, and then you get the set, and you plant it out, and it breaks dormancy. So the set almost kind of feels like it's had a winter, in which winter is, what signals onions to flower. They're biennials, so in their second year they flower, and so that set almost kind of believes that that next year is its second year. And you're more likely to get them to bolt. We grew good sized onions. We planted them out, I think, in April, moved them to the greenhouse before then, and harvested them, I think it was in late July. And we got a good harvest. So I'm going to start onions seeds again and have seedlings. Probably never going to go back to sets because honestly these seeds are much cheaper than buying sets, and I can get a lot more of them. So enough jibber jabber, let's talk about our onions. So we grow 3 different kinds of onions and a leek. So the leek we'll start out with is an American flag leek. They get, you want to harvest them after they are at least 1.5 inches. You can mound them up, so plant them in a trench and mound them up to blanch the stems. We did that. We got a lot of leeks, put some in the freezer, and the leeks have been pretty delicious. These are the American flag leeks are pretty cold hardy, so even after a couple frosts, we were still going out there pulling some leeks out of the ground and using them fresh. So they're very good to grow here in northern Illinois, and it's a nice flavor. It uses up a fair amount of space to get not too many leeks, but it's an interesting crop to grow, and we enjoy it, especially when they're a lot cheaper than you can get at the store, and sometimes you have difficulty finding good ones at the store. So they can take a while to grow to a full mature size. Like we planted at the same time as our onions, and we didn't really start harvesting them until September. We could have harvested them sooner, and we might next year. So then we have our onions. We have yellow onions, which are yellow or have a yellowish or whitish interior, and then brown skin. Red onions, and our white onions. So red, last year we grew some ruby red onions. They stored really well for us. They seem to be storing better than our whites and our yellows, which is actually kind of the opposite of what you think, because usually they have a lower sulfite content, so red onions usually don't store as long, but they're still storing great. And we have white sweet Spanish onions, our white selected variety, and then we have Utah yellow sweet Spanish onions. So, and then we have an outlier here. This is a Texas Early Grano 502. So if we look at our 3 onions, that we don't include the Texas, we look at these 3. The reason I chose all of these is because they're long day onions, and they're good for storage. So it's important to choose the right variety of onion based on the photo period that it prefers to grow in. So we here in northern Illinois need long day growing onions. And we're going to pop up a map so you can see where in the country your growing day is. So you can get an idea. Now there's long day and there's short day, and there are some intermediate day onions. If you're in an intermediate zone, you could probably do okay with either long day or short day onions. If you're in the south, you want short day, and if you're in the north, you want long day. And that has to do with the sun. So onions in the north are going to be grown when the days are the longest, so right through the middle of the summer, and onions in the south tend to be grown more in the fall and the spring when days are shorter. And if you have the wrong photo period, your onions aren't going to set bulbs correctly. So you're not going to get a nice fat onion that you want to eat. You might get green growth, and it might live on until next year, but you're not going to get the desired end product. So we get long day onions to grow, and that's what we're going to be starting. Now I want to try and experiment some, so I got these 502 Texas Early Granos, and I am trying to figure out what is going to be the best way to grow these in the greenhouse in a little bit of a different temperature, so that they will become productive. I'm thinking about doing these in the fall, If you've done anything like that in the north where you've grown them in the greenhouse where the photo period's a little bit different, drop a comment down below. And give me your thoughts on starting these early grano onions in a different growing season than our normal outdoor long day onions. So that's a little bit about what we have for our onions and why we've selected them. Like I said, the whites and the yellows are supposed to store a little bit longer than the reds. And if you're a cooking person, you know, whites and yellows have a little bit different uses. Yellows tend to be a little bit sweeter. They can be good for frying. Whites are good for putting in a salsa. And reds we like to eat fresh, maybe chopped up on a salad. So they have different uses. If you just want a kind of an all-arounder, you know, pick any one of them and just use it however you want. But that's what we have for options. So let's set the Texas onions aside. And these onions are pretty easy to grow. They only want to be planted about 1/4 inch deep, and they are kind of cold tolerant. We're going to start these a couple months before we're going to move them outside, because like I said, we're going to move them outside in April, and right now it's February. They'll actually go into the greenhouse. They'll be happy in the greenhouse for a little bit in these trays, and they'll be able to get a nice little root system going in each of these cells. So we'll talk about transplanting them out when the time comes, but right now we're going to be starting some seeds. So I've got this tray that I have made, and I've got 16, 1, 2, 3, 4, 16 pots here. So we're going to do 8 and 8 of our seeds. So I think we're going to start with our white sweet Spanish and our Utah yellows in here. So 8. So we'll do 8 and 8. So onion seeds are small little black seeds that don't take too much to grow. They'll be very happy. So in each of these we'll sprinkle maybe 10 to 15 seeds in each pot so that they can have a chance to grow. Okay, so we just sprinkle a few in here. And these can be kind of dense. They don't take up too much room. It's almost like maybe growing grass or something. They're kind of long and skinny. And they don't do too much until you move them on. That packet's empty. That's why we have a spare. And this is what we're going to do for all of them. We're going to sprinkle a layer on top. And this should grow plenty of onions for us. Back into there you go. Okay. So now that we have our onions dispersed, we'll get a little bit of our potting mix. And we'll just cover them up. Like I said, about 1/4 of an inch. And just tamp it down a little bit so it gets good contact. And it really is going to be just as easy as that. Just got a couple more cells here to do. And then once we have all of these trays done, we'll move on to our brand new growing setup, which is going to be exciting. I can't wait to see what kind of progress and great veggies we get growing down there. So after getting these sown, what we're going to do is we're going to bottom water them, and then we are not going to put these on a heat mat because they shouldn't need it to germinate. And after a few days, I hope to see some germination. So there we go. Those are all ready. And what I'm going to do is just going to repeat this process over and over again with some of these great MI Gardener seeds. If you're looking for these exact varieties to grow, you can check out MI Gardener or find something that works for you. But I've got a few more pots to do, and so I'm going to keep going to work. So I hope you have a great day, and I hope you get out there and grow some onions. We'll see you next time.